Hi everyone, I'm Jocelyn, and I am grateful you're here. You're listening to the Starting with Gratitude podcast. This is a safe space intended to host meaningful conversations exploring all topics of the human experience. Every conversation starts with gratitude and remains rooted in gratitude. After you listen, make sure to join the community by subscribing and sharing. I am so happy you have joined us. Hello, Jonathan.
Hi.
How is your spirit doing this morning?
My spirit good. My spirit's good. There's kind of a new, I have some new things I'm working on, both like habits, practices, but also prepping for some, my first like live shows, private live shows in over a year. So I'm kind of, that good excitement, and yeah, I feel good.
Yeah, some newness in this season.
Mm-hmm.
I did want to acknowledge the recent single that you put out called Never Like This featuring Adeline. And I had to say the video is so beautiful. I feel like it depicted the lyrics so well. So for everyone listening or watching, I definitely recommend that you check that out because it is so beautiful.
I do have to correct the pronunciation. It's Adeline.
Adeline. Okay, yes.
Yeah,
I appreciate corrections on pronunciations because names are important. Adeline, she has a beautiful voice as well. So that's a very beautiful song. And I'm sure whoever gets to experience it live this year is going to be blessed with that. Before we really dive into this conversation, just kind of want to let people know how it is that I stumbled upon you. And it's through your piano and prayer sessions that you've been hosting for months now, since last year, every single week. And I just feel really honored to be featuring you on my podcast and having this conversation with you, because every time that I see you doing a prayer and really forming this community, it's what you've done is so beautiful. And I'm just excited to have this conversation and exchange words with you and share it with everyone.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm excited too. I appreciate you reaching out, and it's always, it's humbling to have somebody reach out and ask to pry more into your life and work and purpose and all of that. So I definitely am like always open to the opportunity.
Beautiful. Well, before we fully dive into our conversation, I'm going to ask that you share with us your expression of gratitude.
Oh yeah, I wrote it down. This is part of the new thing. I am working on writing things down more with a new system called bullet journaling. It's a new thing I'm trying out. So
that's great.
It captures all the things, including like journal entries and whatnot. So I wrote this a little bit before we jumped on. So let's see. I'm grateful for healthy relationships with my wife, my friends. I'm grateful for the discernment and this knowing in my spirit when I'm engaging with someone without agenda. And I'm grateful for opportunities to express myself through art, through music. And I'm grateful for the piano and prayer community that you mentioned, and the way that it's grown in both in, I guess, numbers, but also just in connection and the deepening the connection over the last 14 months. So, yeah. And lastly, I'm grateful for my relationship with God, just spirituality and having that in my life, relationship with prayer as a grounding force in my life.
Yeah. Gratitude is one of my forms of prayer. And I love hearing people express their gratitude and what it is that they feel grateful for. So thank you for participating in my pre-recording activity of writing it down. I feel like writing it down, which is also one of my forms of prayer, is writing, just kind of gives it more life, when you kind of take that extra action to like put it out into the world.
Mm-hmm.
I want to dive more into the piano and prayer. Was this something that kind of came to you as a calling last year, that like all of a sudden like you had this idea?
Yeah. So in the beginning of the pandemic, my wife and I were talking about just like what can we do as a way to serve the community, or like just tap in and stay engaged with folks that we weren't able to see in person. And everyone's at home, and I always like, you see a lot of people doing at home concerts and live acoustic, whatever, and shows and playing their music. And at first she came up kind of with the idea of going that route. It's like, why don't you get on and just play some of your songs? And like, I don't know. I have this not weird, I think it's actually rather normal relationship with social media and self-promotion. And I shy away from it. I think part of it is really healthy. And I think parts of it are probably also because of some sort of like insecurity and fear. But I'm like, I don't feel like that's the venue in which I like to share my music. It's just not. Like, I'd rather be on stage. I'd rather be with my band. I'd rather be able to see people live. Doing the Instagram live thing just wasn't super exciting to me, but I decided to try it. So I got on the first time and played guitar and played a few songs, and it was fine. It was okay. I felt okay about it. But what did happen though was that I got really great feedback, and people were like, thank you so much. And I think the first thing I did, I think I played a song on the guitar called Already Love You, which is like really a meditative, I wrote it kind of as like a love letter from God to me, just saying that I already love you before you even start your day. Like, there's no work that you need to do to be loved by God. And so I think playing that song in that time, I people felt it and received it well. And in that, I recognized how much I was kind of self-focused in even thinking about whether or not to do something on the internet and on IG Live, and not so much thinking about what it could be as an offering. So after I did that first one, wasn't really feeling it. Like, I felt weird about it afterwards, but then, the feedback came in. I was like, I tried to just like think about it differently, and through more conversations with my wife, she pushed me to get back on and do something. And I was like, I think I'm just going to play piano and just like, and pray. And I think maybe it was her suggestion to pray as well with folks. And so it kind of just started like that. I got on, and it's something that I've been doing. And I played piano because it's something that I've done since I was young. Like, playing kind of improvised piano on my own is a way that I've always prayed and meditated. I used to do it in the dark at home. It's just like my way of just like sitting in whatever I'm feeling and my emotions that I wasn't able to express in other ways. And so it became, and I used to do it in high school as well, in the chapel during breaks, when people would just like sit around and just like meditate or relax, whatever it was. So it was sharing something really personal for me that I was hoping would help others, and people seem to get something out of it. So I'm grateful for that.
Yeah. Do you feel like now that you've been doing that and creating community, it kind of brought you back to all of those times when you were younger, that you kind of naturally have done that before?
Yeah, it's been, it's connected to so many different themes that I think like have come up during the pandemic, like, but one in particular, returning home. A lot of people like had to return home or decided to go home and then spend that time with their family, which I think is really beautiful, or were forced to, which could also be beautiful, because I know a lot of my friends were able to spend time with their parents that they wouldn't have otherwise if they were just living their lives in a normal way and going about their busy work life and whatnot. And so for me, part of returning home was going back to playing piano more, because I write most of my songs on guitar now. but now I'm playing piano every week. That method of prayer and meditation through playing piano, all of that was definitely like, oh yeah, I'm getting back to basics, and it aligned with me getting back to some of my foundational, the foundational love I have for music and soul music and the kind of music that I was raised on. So it all kind of aligned in this like return home into my foundation for sure.
Yeah.
The church as well. Growing up in the church, like prayer and worship is all a big part of my relationship with music and God, and just a big part of my life.
Yeah, yeah. I did want to ask you, if you had felt any discomfort when you first started doing piano and prayer. So I'm glad that you shared that already with us. And it seems like, I mean, so much I'm sure has unfolded for you, and perhaps some lessons that you've learned in like maybe pushing past those boundaries of discomfort and leaning into this calling, and even shifting your perspective, it seems like was important for you in the beginning to see it more so as like an offering for others.
Yeah. Yeah. There were a number of perspective shifts, and they're kind of ongoing because I shared this with somebody recently, but like when I do every piano and prayer, I could be, I bring different things into the space. And so although I try to pray before I start, I'm also like, I'm setting up, just it's a little bit of setup. It's nothing major, but I'm just like moving around, getting ready and doing whatever I did, finishing up whatever I was doing before in the day, and just that like transition energy cost and all of that I have to go through to like sit and try to be present. And sometimes I'm present immediately, and sometimes it takes me a little while to like, all right, I got to play, get out of my head, stop thinking about whatever like random insecurities might come up. Like, oh, is my shirt the right shirt? Did I wear this shirt like last week? Is it going to be the same? Or like, do I even sound good on the piano right now? And a lot of these things, like from when I first started to now, they've kind of just dissipated and gone away, where it's like, I am present. I'm not like, I think less about myself as time, which has been a great lesson, a great, it's just been a great practice, really is what it is. It's like that piano and prayer is a practice for me as much as it is an offering or like a social media thing. It's like, it is an actual practice of moving my ego out of the way, breathing, being present, and focusing on like, just channeling whatever it is God wants to flow through me into people that are on.
Yeah, that is something that I've noticed you're very intentional about in the beginning of your sessions, is your awareness that you are becoming a channel and a vessel, and you set the intention to clear your channel and to be like a pure vessel, to remove ego or bias or like any self-imposed thoughts that, may influence the prayer in some way, shape, or form. For some that, may not fully understand what that means necessarily to like become a clear vessel, what does that mean to you, and how does doing that shift the prayer?
Yeah, I think that prayer necessitates belief in something larger than ourselves. If it's not God, I think for most people it is God when you think about prayer, but it doesn't. A lot of people have different relationships with prayer, but I think that it does necessitate a belief in like spirit or something outside of ourselves, outside of the physical realm, and something that we're able to tap into and like kind of pull into earth. So for me, it's like, I believe that everything is spiritual. This is like, we are currently living in these natural bodies in this physical realm, but there is a spiritual realm. And I believe that you are able to, and kind of we are tasked to pull things in from the heavenly realms into the earthly realm. So even like love from God, which is outside of maybe our understanding. It's outside of the bounds of our limited like ability to empathize and outside of the bounds of our judgment or self-centeredness. It's just like this selfless love that we can tap into. But if we're thinking about, for example, like in a relationship, we're thinking about what that person's going to do for us or how that person's actions reflect on us, or will we get love back if we give love? And that restricts this flow of godly love, which is abundant, which is infinite, which is not self-serving, but it's self-serving only in the sense that when love flows through you, you get filled with love as well. But giving love in that way, that's unselfish, that sees love and giving love as the blessing itself and as the gift itself, allows for it, I think, to make just the maximum impact. So that same spirit of love is it's the same when you're giving of your gifts or your talent or your time, whatever role I'm supposed to. So I'll say my definition of that purest love is me playing whatever role I'm called to play in anybody else's life to help them become like exactly who God has created them to be, to help them get closer to God. And so for my wife, that in my understanding is like marrying her, being her partner, being there for her at all times. For other people, it might mean, just giving the offering of piano and prayer. And so if I can stay connected to like, how does God see this person? How would God want to like show up in this space, and like have faith that in me setting that intention, God will fulfill that purpose, then I feel like I'm in the right space to be giving, to give and to engage with people at it in the highest form possible.
Yeah. And I do want to affirm that as someone who joins in on the sessions and listens and is present with you in that moment, that you definitely give off like this light of selflessness. So I love that. And it seems, I'm guessing that even having this awareness and the consistency of piano and prayer, you've been able to kind of tap back into that awareness or that perspective throughout daily occurrences in your life.
Yeah, it's like it is, because it is a practice. It's definitely something that like I can't get too far away from. And granted, there's a lot going on in life. There's a lot there's a lot of different challenges or problems to solve or things that come up. But I do think I feel good about the fact that what I'm doing on Instagram Live feels in line with like my life and like the way that I try to live my life. There are times when it's harder than others. Like in some ways it's easier to stay connected to that purpose when I know that there are other people impacted by like what I bring into the space. And that's part of my personality too. I know I'm a team sport guy. I played played basketball growing up. And like, I know that when I was like captain in whatever of the team, and I knew people were like looking to me as a leader, it like something clicks in me that's like, I got y'all. I have you. I know where I need to be in order for us to win, in order for you to be like, feel confident about what you can do on the team, et cetera, et cetera. I think I still struggle at times when it's just me. Like, and there are certain things with my music that it is just me. Like I was in a band, but I'm now solo. And so getting to that same space takes a little bit more work for me to be like, okay, Jonathan, get out of your head. Let the music flow through. It's not coming from you. It's not about you. It's like somebody needs this. And God has something he wants to say through you. So like, it's a little bit more difficult when I don't have somebody on the other end presently that's like, that I can like see and feel that needs what I have to offer. So it is a practice, but different settings are more difficult to kind of fully tap into that. So
yeah. Thank you for sharing all of that. Who would you say are some of like your dearest vessels in your life?
Oh, wow. Interesting question. I mean, my wife, for sure. I think that she is someone who, like, I admire her honesty and like the way that she shows up in every space in the world. Like, and it's really something that's just like, she's wired a certain way that like, she doesn't have the same filters that I often do, which are like, I think this thing or I feel this way, but I don't, but then I second guess it because I'm like, oh, should I feel this way or should I think this thing? But like, there's another way to look at it as opposed to like acknowledge, like giving space or credence to feeling what I feel, like being exactly where I am, feeling the exact thing that I feel without judging it. I think I jumped to judgment a little too quickly. And so watching her kind of flow from this pure place of like, God put this vision in me, I'm exercising my purpose and I'm just going and I'm not second guessing. I'm not, and you know, she wrestles with thoughts and whatnot, but her action, she's really like oriented towards like, I'm just moving forward despite the fear, despite insecurity, all of that. So, and I think that example of moving in that way with like a certain purity of like, or at least an effort to clear out the junk so that you just, or ignore the junk at times, just like to move forward is, it's admirable and like, it's inspiring. It's inspiring to see and something that I'm like trying to embody more and more, which is like, I think another important thing about being clear vessels is like, on one hand, you channel the thing that people need in a pure way, but also you can model the power of being a pure vessel as well. And people see that and from afar and like, oh, that I see how that works, how that can work and potentially work for me as well. So yeah, my wife, I would say, there are a few like pastors that I listen to. There's like Torrey Roberts is one. I'll tap into TD Jakes every now and then. Who are some other folks? That's a good question. That's a good question. I got to think about that. They're friends of mine. They're friends of mine that I like really admire the way that, and I don't think anybody has it perfect in all the, no one that I know has it perfect in all the areas of their life.
Sure.
But like, there are certain friends of mine that I'm like, I love how you approach. I mean, Adeline is another person. Lupita Nyong'o, who's in the video, is another. She actually just we did a whole session for bullet journaling yesterday because she definitely is a vessel. Like, there is a purity about her vessel that's incredibly like, it's like regal. It's like regal and noble. Yeah. There are a few people. Adeline, like I said, too, with her music, the way she approaches music is really super dope. Yeah.
Yeah. And now that you expanded on it, I expanded on the question myself. And now I feel like I've gained this new perspective of a way to observe people because I'm very observant. And so now I feel like I'll be asking myself when I observe the people around me, like, what do I feel like they are a vessel of or for?
Mm-hmm.
And when I do, one of the first things that I do think of when I think of being a pure vessel is non-judgment.
Mm-hmm.
So I have like sticky notes throughout my house or my apartment with affirmations. And one of the affirmations that I have on my bathroom mirror, which, you know, we look at every morning, is something like, today I will practice non-judgment. I will judge nothing that occurs today. And it's such a good reminder.
Yeah.
And I feel like too, being in this state of channeling brings you into the present moment. I think that's another aspect of this. Do you feel this? Do you feel that too? Like you bring yourself to the present moment?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, 100%, especially when it's like, when the conditions are set right and the intention is set right, which is, in thinking about this, I'm like, it's a good reminder of what I need to bring into other parts of my life from piano and prayer. Like specifically, I'm thinking about how present I have to be in order to do piano and prayer, and knowing that I'm like, people are listening, people are watching. And that's in my brain, but like I know that the best thing I can do with that reality is to be present. And so when like writing, for example, the best writing has come out of this moment where I'm so present and drawn in generally to the music. I'm just like really drawn into like the spirit of, even if it's a demo, even if it's just a few chords that I've laid down, like I'm drawn into that. I am super present with it. Then that's how songs can kind of spill out, as opposed to like judgment can be like, I'm judging my own ideas, or I'm thinking of, or I'm comparing them against like, oh, is this catchy enough? Is this enough? Is it that enough? And then I'm not present in the moment of that. So yeah.
Yeah. I have thought of that myself too recently. It's like my best ideas or moments of clarity have always come when I am completely present. Like, have you ever caught yourself like, being in a lot of movement, and then you gift yourself a moment of stillness, and then, a moment of clarity comes to you. And it's like this is, you remember like it is so important to be still and to be present, because when you're not present, I feel it's like then you're either somewhere attached to the past or too fixated on the future, when really the most control that we have is when we are completely present.
Mm-hmm. And breath is like a big part of that too. I was just reminded of when we did like a release event for Never Like This in LA, and I was like running around and things were kind of running late, and I had so much going on in my head. And one of my good friends, Salema Masakela, he just saw me, and he could like, he's a great vessel as well. He saw me, stopped me, and was like, breathe.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. And I just like was really, really grateful that he like he was present enough to see that I wasn't breathing.
Mm-hmm.
Like the anxious energy, and I talked to a lot of people, was running like other people saw him, but he was one that like saw that something. He's like, you need to breathe, you're not breathing right now. So I was like appreciative of that.
Yeah. And that's something that you emphasized too in the beginning of your piano and prayers, all of us kind of getting on this collective same breath. And I completely agree with you. Is like deep breaths or just being conscious with your breath is in itself a vessel or a channel to get straight into the present moment, because your breath is never in the future or attached to the past. It's literally happening right now in this moment. So when you connect yourself to that, it's like, okay, I'm here,
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen the movie Soul?
I didn't see it. I like started it, and then something happened, and I need to go back and finish that movie though. I was like, I can't believe I haven't finished this movie. So I have not yet.
Yeah, I highly recommend you revisit it, because there's this, can I share like one part with you?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, I don't want to ruin it. I don't think I will, but there's this one part where he's playing piano. And I mean, I think it might come out in the preview, so you may have already seen this clip, but
maybe I saw it. Maybe I remember, because I got like a third through the movie.
Yeah, where he's playing piano and he's like really he starts playing, and then you see him like really becoming more and more present into just like freestyle playing the piano, and all of a sudden like, Pixar being Pixar, like he's floating with the piano, and there's like all these colors, and I feel like in that clip is like a perfect depiction of everything that we've been talking about, is like becoming in the present moment, of becoming a channel. I feel like when you are doing something that you really love and is like your calling, and you are in that present moment doing that thing, you connect to spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, I just like, when I think of all this, I think of that clip. And I just wanted to bring it up with you to see if you had seen the movie and remember that part, because I think it's so beautiful. And kind of like what I brought up in the beginning of, you know, writing being one of my forms of prayer, expressing gratitude being one of my forms of prayer. And I think you recently shared this in one of the sessions, that prayer, you know, doesn't always look like, you know, just, you know, sitting and praying. Sometimes it takes on different forms.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the other forms for you that it comes up as prayer to you?
Yeah. So obviously, yeah, playing piano, like praying specifically, and then also like just taking walks. Like I love just walking to water. I like being outside at night also, and just like looking up, which is really, you know, God is not up in the sky necessarily, but I think God, like, I think by looking up, it kind of helps me, like the connect with a symbol of like connecting with what's bigger than you. It's like
Mm-hmm.
I'm here presently in this physical body, in this physical world, and I can see out into something that is like beyond my understanding or comprehension in size and scale, and just and recognize that I'm literally from where I am looking millions of miles into at something else, which is like outside, way outside of my comprehension. So I think just in that practice of like looking up, I connect with what's bigger than me, and just conversation in that. I just talk to God like that. Usually when I do that at night is when I'm most like familiar with God. Like my conversation is like as I'm talking to a friend, talking to, you know, a relative, someone that I know loves me, and it's often gratitude. It's often, sometimes it's not. When I'm not feeling well, I'm like, God, I'm not feeling it. What's going on? Like frustration, whatever it is, just like honest communication with God.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'd say, yeah, those are like the two main things: walking and just talking to God, and then anything like physical movement.
Mm-hmm. Have you, I mean, I'm sure you have because we're all human, but, you know, I was going to ask, have you, you know, ever experienced a season of your life where you felt just completely disconnected to spirit, to God?
Yeah, for sure, 100%. One of the times was like, one of the times was kind of, I don't say intentional, but when I was like 20 or something like that, I remember I had a conversation with somebody, and, you know, it was like just gone to school. It was kind of like a stereotypical prodigal son journey. It was like gone to school, thinking about God and spirit and all of it, and like the religious kind of thinkings that I'd grown up with in the Christian church, that didn't really like align with where like certain that are logical ways of thinking and whatnot. I was like, that doesn't make sense. And I kind of just like rejected God all out. Really for like 4 or 5 years, I was kind of like, not really interested in like a spiritual relationship with God. But then even when I came back to kind of going to church and reading more and like developing my own relationship with God and Christ and Jesus and all of the things that I was raised with, and having my own personal relationship with it, like 2 or 3 years into that, I had this period of time where I didn't realize it at the time, but my, like looking back on it after I kind of come out of it, was like I had lost I'd lost really my ability to feel gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what happened was I'd always seen myself as like a positive, like optimistic person. And I've always have been. And that kind of came naturally to me. I was like, I'm always gonna be happy. Things are gonna work out, et cetera, et cetera. And I think because I was trying to really figure out a lot of different things with my relationship, with music, money, finances, all of this stuff that was coming up, I just like I wasn't feeling grateful. Like I was just feeling like I was striving. Like I was really just like trying to make these things work and do better and whatever it was. And I wasn't taking the time to be like, well, what is beautiful right now in my life? What is like, what is pleasant? What actually does, what is working? What are the blessings in my life? And I just wasn't, I wasn't taking any time intentionally. I didn't have the practices to tap into gratitude. And I realized I'd just taken my kind of natural sunny disposition for granted. And that my next season was requiring is just more intentional, ways of tapping into gratitude, whether that's writing it down or just saying it out loud, praying and saying thank you, which is something I do in piano and prayer because it's something I realized I needed to do more for myself. It's like, even if you don't know what you're grateful for, even if you don't feel it in this moment, like just saying the words oftentimes helps you tap into gratitude that you've been burying with all your junk. So,
yeah. Gratitude is great, isn't it? And there truly is always something to be grateful for. Thank you for sharing that. And I think it is, when we come into that space of kind of being sucked in by all the occurrences that we may have going on in life. And, it is beautiful to strive for more and to have goals and have dreams. But something that I've learned from, some of the classes that I've taken and just, living life is when you're consistently focused on having more, wanting more, you subconsciously find yourself in this state of lack because you want more and more and more, and you're not really placing attention on being grateful for what it is that you have now, or being appreciative of what it is that you have now. And I feel like sometimes we can get caught up in that, and we have to, like, again, bring ourselves back to this present moment. I was sharing this with my last podcast guest of a time where I felt super disconnected to spirit and to God. And a lot of life stuff was happening at the time. But I remember consciously being aware that I felt so disconnected. And wishing that I could go back to that feeling that I had, of like just loving life and feeling aligned and connected and this oneness. It's like a certain feeling, a certain spirit that you have when you are connected to spirit. And I realized that I felt so disconnected because essentially I was disconnected to myself. And from that, I learned that your connection to spirit, to God, is a reflection of your connection to yourself. And I just will never forget that. So whenever I start catching myself feeling that way, I'm like, okay, where am I with myself,
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. I think in that time too, I definitely was ignoring myself. I wasn't regarding where I was, like, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, like I was feeling disconnected from the work I was doing, because I was going through like a transition, a shift, and like trying to figure out, and also like in some ways, somewhat inauthentically, like trying on other people's points of views or other ways to live that like maybe they didn't feel natural or didn't fit fully, and trying them on in a way that was like, fine, I'm just gonna like disregard where I'm at or the way I see it or how I feel, and just like do this thing and like not even pay attention to, not really check in with myself. I'm like, well, how are you doing? And how do you honestly feel about it? And I love what you just said. It's like, feeling disconnected. There is a relationship. Like you can't really be connected to God fully if you're ignoring yourself, or you're not regarding yourself, or you're not connected to yourself, because God is in you, God is connected to you as well. So like if you're ignoring yourself, then you're ignoring a huge part of God and that thread and that relationship. It's like one of the other end of that relationship. So I love that.
Thank you. I just had to share it with you. Kind of transitioning into this other calling of yours that I feel like you've answered is you being a musician and following that, and still, to leeway into that, but still touch on what we were just talking about. For those that don't necessarily know how to connect with themselves, or how to know what their calling is, what advice or perspective of your own can you provide them?
Yeah. The first thing I'd say is like know that it's a journey. It's definitely a journey. Like figuring out, I think some people, they spend some time praying about it, like really seeking, and then like it clicks and it matches like their past, their talents, their hobbies, a gift that they have. Like I feel really grateful that I have music. Like it's a really kind of somewhat concrete thing. It's like I can make sounds and make songs, and people enjoy them, and that's like there's a kind of easy feedback there. But even within that, it's like, well, what part of music, what kind of music do I want to make? Like, is it a band? Is it solo? Do I rap? Do I sing? Do I just produce? Am I an artist? All of those things are like parts of the journey once I got in there. So I think being okay with the fact that like we can try things and not be afraid to try things. And like the only way we really hone what it is our purpose is by bouncing ourselves off of different experiences. And just being, like you said, being present and being aware of like how we feel about what we're doing, what we're engaging with, and trying to pay more attention to like ourselves and our spirits than we do to like outside reinforcement or negativity. And then I feel like in this day and age, like we maybe always, but certain professions or certain like titles like are held on a pedestal. If your purpose is, if you're an artist, you're a musician, you're a speaker, an actor, or like an entrepreneur, even all of these things are like, you got to be that, you got to be that, you got to be that, and your purpose isn't that. But I think that we do a disservice by elevating any of those like outwardly celebrated roles above like people's purpose to be like people whose purpose it is to be like a love in their community, a source of love and light in their community, or a mother, a father, or an amazing friend. Just got some of the more like intangible things that don't have business models attached to them. Like your purpose can be in those things. Like it's as big, that being your purpose can be just as big as somebody like whose purpose it is to have millions of followers and like songs or millions of dollars coming in revenue through their entrepreneurial endeavor. So I think we often discount the impact that some of those like lesser celebrated roles have on this earth and have in the world. And we get caught thinking like our purpose has to be something that is Instagrammable. And so I think really like trying to think outside the box and recognize that even if you have a 9-to-5, like maybe your purpose isn't in that 9-to-5, but it's in, or maybe it is in that 9-to-5, but not in the way we think. Like it's maybe in the way that you interact with your coworkers, and you being that coworker that is always bringing more like love and empathy into people's lives, and helping people treat each other better day in and day out. And like these things have ripple effects, often to millions, even though you don't see that in likes on any platform platform, it's like taking the small things in as part of your purpose as well is important, so that you're not always comparing yourself to some impossible standards and whatever is currently elevated in our pop culture. So those are words.
No, yeah, I totally agree. I feel like we've, in a way, narrowed our vision and our perspective because we've become so fixated on titles. And it's very true, like our I personally feel like we each have more than one purpose because we're incredibly multidimensional and we continue to evolve and our purpose evolves along with us. And sometimes, that said, it shows up in many different reflections. Sometimes, like you said, it's just genuinely being someone who listens, someone who's there. I want to touch on very quickly your calling of being a musician. Did you have like a pivotal moment where you realized, this is something that I want to pursue?
Yeah, I did. I was, I feel like fewer and fewer people know this nowadays, but I was on like a completely different track. I went to school for biology. I went to grad school and originally I was pre-med, went to grad school and was doing like PhD research program. And
wow.
Yeah, I was like halfway through that program and I wasn't loving it. I wasn't very connected or present with it. I just, I enjoyed certain parts of it. Like classes were interesting. And I also was really involved with like the Black Grad Student Association. I was the president of that. So I enjoyed like some of the social aspects and I enjoyed classwork. But when it came down to doing the research in the lab, I was like, I am so bored. Like I don't feel connected to this work at all. But I was just going forward because it was the track that I decided I was going to be on until I had a conversation with somebody who stumbled upon one of our BGSA, Black Grad Student Association happy hours. And she asked me what I was doing, what I did. And I told her my spiel that I figured was always going to be just like received with a wow or something like that. I was like, oh, I'm getting my PhD in immunology, blah, blah, blah. And she was like, okay, you don't sound very passionate about what you do. And I felt caught. And like, it just kind of like was one of those conversations that deeply shifted my perspective and kind of opened up this question, created this question. I was like, what am I passionate about? And how should that relate to both my purpose and then my career choice? And like, why haven't I thought about this before? And the things that came up, and this will kind of go to your earlier question, I guess, for advice and whatnot. I was in grad school, but I decided to go back to like Stanford's like undergrad career center and take like self-inventory, like strengths quest and strong interest inventory, just like a whole bunch of self-assessment tests, Myers-Briggs, and reading books and just talking to a career counselor. And things that came up were like, well, and then like match those results with what I knew I was passionate about was like music and people. Like I love people. I loved learning about people, engaging with people, and I love music. And so that started me on a road, and it's planted the seed in the back of my head that I was like, I really just want to be a musician. I want to make music, but I was still fearful of that. But it started me on a road where it was like, okay, maybe I do marketing within the music industry. And so I went to like a social media marketing startup, and then I went and that got acquired by Google. And then I did like, and all in my head, I'm making music all along the way, like making beats and, I'm not sharing a lot of it, but like I was always making music, always writing songs. My roommates knew it, but like other people in college and grad school, like were really surprised when I started really making music. And they were like, oh, what, you did this? And I was like, yeah, I've always done it. I just never really shared it.
Yeah.
And then after a while, like taking those baby steps kind of through different paths, getting closer and closer, I made a leap, and I was like, I just need to just pull this trigger and just take a leap of faith and try to figure out how I'm supposed to exist through music in this world. Because I just felt at a certain point that's what I was supposed to do. So, and I haven't really looked back since. And now I know this is what I do.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure that in itself has been a complete journey of unfolding and obstacle and overcoming in itself. And that in itself could be a whole other podcast episode and conversation. But now that, let's fast forward a bit and just come to this present moment of who you are now, and looking back, and how do you feel about that decision of, completely pivoting to another path, and being to where you are now and experiencing everything that you've experienced because of that decision?
Yeah, I mean, I feel amazing about it. Like, there's actually never been a time. It's funny, the woman that had that conversation with me, we kept in touch, because I always like to, I would always like go back when I was in California, or like send her a message, because it was such an important conversation and pivotal moment in my life. She recently sent me a message on LinkedIn, which I like never checked, but I went there, and she was like, I was just thinking about it, and I was just like hoping that you were happy, because I hope that I didn't steer you wrong, and all this. And I was like, this is so interesting. When I don't think she's on Instagram or anything. I just don't know if she like knows anything about what I'm doing. But I was like, no, like I have zero regrets. I have like I don't think about, well, what if I was doing biomedical anything? Like I'm just like, the journey that I've been on. And one thing I knew, even going into it, but I've like learned even more as I've gotten deeper into it. And even looking in like the Bible, you read the Bible, and like these stories about individuals and their journeys with God are all just like people following a move of God, or following the Spirit, or just whatever is in them. And it's never just about the thing. Like, me diving into music is not just about music. It's like, it's about music. It's about me. It got me to New York, which is where I was reintroduced to my wife. And now, this community of people, and like ending up going all over the world, playing music, and just like these experiences, and the people that I've met, there's affirmation, like on so many levels, that like, this is just the journey I was called to be on. And music is a central part of that, but not the only reason why this was the path that I was supposed to be on. So
yeah, isn't that crazy, but also beautiful, how all she did was be honest with you, and she completely shifted your path, and awakened you. And this whole time, without her even knowing how much of an impact she made on a human being. I feel like so many of us, just by speaking our truth and being our truth, we have those little impacts on people that we may not be aware of. Well, thank you so much. I could ask you so many more other questions, but I feel like we had a beautiful conversation on just, following your calling and being present and connecting to spirit. And congratulations on doing all of that, on following your calling and trusting yourself and your path, and sharing it with us, with the world.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. This was a beautiful conversation. I enjoyed this. I've had like one or two others in the last month or so, and I'm like, it's good, because I always learn something as well. I always like get some nuggets that I get to kind of take with me. It's also like a verbal journaling session as well. Little free therapy session.
I love it. Yeah, I love it. I feel like honest conversation just about life is something that I'm really passionate about, because of exactly that. You discover things about yourself and others, and are able to feel seen in some way, shape, or form. But thank you so much. I'm excited to share this.
For sure. Thank you, Jocelyn.